When they first announced that Renny Harlin was doing a Strangers trilogy, that got me pretty excited. It sounded pretty cool. I like Renny Harlin a lot. I like a lot of the movies that he made, especially, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Deep Blue Sea, Die Hard 2. Seems like he knows how to continue a franchise and deliver in at least an interesting way. But what really interested me about it not was the fact that he was directing a Strangers movie, but it was the fact that he was directing a whole trilogy and that he was filming them all back to back. It was one complete entire story that was basically going to be broken up into 3 parts. But like a lot of people, a lot of my hopes and what I had as far as optimism was kind of swept by the fact that Strangers Chapter 1 was not very good at all. It was very by the numbers, very generic Strangers movie, basically just a retelling of the first movie that tweaked a few things in order to set up the stage for what's going to happen later in the trilogy. It's almost like the first part was just something they needed to get out of the way so that they could tell any of the new material that they're bringing to this franchise. Anything new that will come out of this franchise is inevitably going to be from whatever they tell in part 2 and 3, which kind of baffles me as to why they even made that first one at least the way that they did. It's way too safe, and it feels like almost that Renny Harlin was just retelling the first one, but with a few different outcomes and pieces mixed in, like, the girl living at the end, so that he could set up the stage for what he wanted to really do. But as far as that first one, since he couldn't use that original movie and springboard off of it, he's just telling it in his own way once again in basically the same way. And I don't know exactly how I feel about that because it just makes the movie so feel cynical. I felt charged to watch a movie that I had already seen before. Now with Strangers Chapter 2 in the mix, we have a trailer now. What I kind of am curious about is whether that can actually save this franchise, if it can somehow retroactively make the first movie better or more clever than it seemed when it initially came out. And what I gotta say is that I am entirely kind of on the fence because I just don't want to trust this same creative team again. As much as I like Renny Harlin, as much as I want to believe that there is something there, something that justified the studio greenlighting a whole trilogy, I just don't know how to feel about it. And maybe it is the fact that they are saving everything for 2 and 3, and that what we're really in this trilogy for and what makes it special is what comes in the later chapters. It's still a little bit soiled by a weak foundation. No matter what you do, no matter how good 2 and 3 are, you're gonna have a bad taste left in your mouth by the fact that the first one, the foundation of this story, is a generic retelling of the original. It almost felt like he felt obliged to do it rather than he actually wanted to do that first movie, and it felt, like I said, an obligatory piece that he had to shoehorn in the beginning so that he could tell the story he really wanted to tell. But if there was no interest in actually retelling The Strangers in an interesting and original way, and if you were just going to reboot it anyway, I don't know why you wouldn't maybe just basically have the second part as the first movie, and then maybe just have a beginning sequence, flashback, something, whatever, that kind of packages what that chapter 1 was in a nutshell. Kind of jog the audience up to speed on what happened to this woman, how she lost her husband, this whole thing. I know that some people think that that might feel microwaved. You're not really getting attached to these characters in any meaningful way before the bad things happen. I'll tell you, what they did with that first movie just didn't help the case to begin with. So if you're shooting yourself in the leg anyway, you might as well just, kind of get that stuff out of the way in the beginning of the movie so that you could tell an original story. Because that is the main problem, I think, with that original, is that it's just the original movie, but with weaker writing and characters. Also, a lot of obvious moments where the characters are being dumb, where they don't make the right decision, where they have great opportunities to get away and they just choose not to take them because they're dumb horror movie characters and you need the story to continue. They need to definitely avoid having things like that. How they get away is based on convenience, or how they get captured is based on stupidity. The writing shouldn't make the characters work for them. The characters should work for the story. I think that is the main problem with that original Chapter 1 movie, is that it has too many situations where that happened. What 2 needs to do is actually get you invested in... Sorry, I have to Google her. Forget her name. Maya. What Chapter 2 needs to really do is get you invested in Maya, her story, her character, kind of her grief over what happened in that first movie, and make her actually an interesting and not stupid character. That would help a lot. But I also think that building out the mythology of these strangers and who they are, although the trailer kind of gives it away a little bit and definitely probably teases a little bit more than they should unless they have something extremely surprising. They need to build out the strangers and figure out a way to make them scary in a way that's actually more compelling than that original. What was always so compelling about the original strangers was that these people were murdered because a few maniacs just happened to find them home alone, just happened to run into them, and that's some of the scariest parts of that original. It's just a random act of violence that happens by random people to random people who just happen to be there. The stars aligned in the worst possible way, and now this couple is suffering horribly because of it. That, I think, is much more scary than the idea of whatever this might be, some town colluding to make killers and villains and strangers. I don't know. I just have a hard time believing it's going to be remotely as compelling as that original motivation, which is basically no motivation. Now, I still want to give it another chance. I still want to see what happens, and good or bad, whatever, I'm going to see it anyway, and then form my opinion. But I just have some reservations, obviously, and I'm curious about whether Strangers Chapter 2 can save the first movie. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. I'm GM Light. Have a good one.